these situations that we're facing, if you see something that's coming and you can avoid it, by all means, let's avoid. But if you cannot avoid it, or it spontaneously comes up on you, you have to formulate a strategy. And sometimes your strategy is to simply slow down, go above.
Welcome to Impact and Fulfillment with Coach Mike D, where you'll gain practical wisdom and dynamic insight from amazing conversations to live your best life.
What's going on, y'all? This is Coach Mike D with another episode of Impact and Fulfillment. Pray y'all are having an amazing day. No matter where you're located, I hope you're also staying warm as possible. As of the day of this recording, there's a lot of inclement weather projected, especially around the United States. Now, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, this is, I guess, summertime for y'all. But for all of us around the U.S. and in other parts of the world that are in the midst of winter, y'all stay warm. But dig this. Today's quick message, I wanted to talk a moment about turbulence. So whenever we fly, it's kind of a situation in which at some point, granted, you do have some smooth flights, but at some point, you almost always experience a little bit of turbulence, right? Typically, when you're ascending or descending or going through a cloud or something, you almost always experience some level of turbulence when you're flying. And truthfully, I used to get extremely nervous the moment that turbulence happened, right? And a lot of the times, our fears or nervousness is associated with our lack of understanding. See, I used to get extremely nervous about turbulence until I spoke with a relative of mine that helped me to understand, and he's a pilot, or he's a retired pilot. He helped me to understand that turbulence typically happens when you go through a cloud, because they're like jet streams and, moisture and all these different things in the clouds, and that causes the turbulence. But the reality is we're typically not concerned because the pilots can see out front. They can see what's coming and they kind of expect it as they go through clouds, whereas passengers just start feeling things shake, and it's nervousness, right? And I would get nervous like everybody else. But it's interesting when you kind of understand turbulence now, because once you understand something, it helps to minimize the nervousness associated with it. But the reality of this conversation today regarding turbulence is kind of doing a little deep dive into how pilots tend to handle turbulence. And I think there's a direct correlation with how we at times need to approach life. So typically when turbulence happens, to make things more comfortable, you'll see pilots ascend or they will descend depending on where the turbulence is happening. So meaning at times when turbulence hits and it hits unexpectedly, they may, tell the flight attendants to turn the seatbelt lights back on or turn the fasten seatbelt signs back on, because they may be about to ascend or rise above the turbulence. On the flip side, there are times in which they need to drop below the turbulence, right? At the end of the day, when they approach or when they encounter unforeseen turbulence, sometimes they have to go above it, but at times they have to drop below it, okay? There's another strategy that you also find that pilots deploy, and sometimes it's reducing their airspeed, slowing down. So again, when you think about turbulence, and we can use that as a metaphor for challenges in our lives, right? And we're talking about unexpected turbulence. Sometimes you simply just need to slow down, rise above it, And maybe there are times in which you need to drop below it. But what really spoke to me about the concept of turbulence is the pilots typically use some type of weather or radar detection system, which allows them to see the turbulence that is ahead. So we just spoke about strategies in the midst of unexpected turbulence, but the real strategy for the pilots is to use the technology available in their experience to forecast where they project turbulence may be and to completely avoid the turbulence. So really, there are 4 strategies if you really think about turbulence. If you can forecast it and you know it's coming, avoid it. Sometimes when you're dealing with it and it's unexpected, you need to slow down. There are times in which, I need to rise above it. What was it? I think Michelle Obama, or former First Lady Michelle Obama, made the statement, when they go low, we go high. Sometimes we need to go high above the turbulence. But then there are some instances in which we need to drop below the turbulence, right? Again, when these things are unexpected. And so when we think about life, these situations that we're facing, if you see something that's coming and you can avoid it, by all means, let's avoid. But if you cannot avoid it, or it spontaneously comes up on you, you have to formulate a strategy. And sometimes your strategy is to simply slow down, go above, or drop below. But the cool thing about turbulence, and the cool thing about understanding it through the lens of talking to pilots, is that turbulence is pretty much par for the course. It's the passengers that typically get super nervous about it. And a lot of times we're super nervous about it simply because we just don't understand it. So again, the title of this podcast is Impact and Fulfillment, right? And as we pursue impact and as we strive for fulfillment in what we do and how we do it and who we're connected with as we do things, we're going to encounter turbulence. Some of it is predictable. Some of it just kind of spontaneously comes out of nowhere, seemingly. But at the end of the day, we need to be in a position to deal with it all, because our ultimate goal is impact and fulfillment. We want things to improve because of our connection to it, but we also want to have that through line of joy in the midst of everything. All right. Well, hey, I hope y'all enjoyed this one, and I hope you are prepared for the turbulence. But most importantly, I hope that you have the systems in place to potentially avoid some of the turbulence that may be coming your way. But if you can't avoid it, you're prepared to deal with it. All right. Well, hey, as always, make sure to grab a copy of my book, The 33 Laws of Impact and Fulfillment, currently available on Amazon and Audible in audiobook form. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Leave some ratings. Please, everybody listening to this, I am asking you to just hit a 5-star review if you enjoyed this episode or enjoyed one of my previous episodes, as well as sharing this with someone else. Because at the end of all of these, scenarios, my goal is to impact as many lives as possible. And that is only made possible when you all share this with others who could benefit. So I'm asking you to share this thing out because we're here to impact lives. All right. Well, hey, as always, y'all be blessed, well, and wise, and I will holla at you. Peace.
I really hope you enjoyed today's episode. Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and follow Coach Mike D everywhere on social media. Y'all be blessed, well, and wise.